Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q with Q. It's me, your political best friend, Quentin R. Giles. But if you're going to take me up on that offer of being best friends, then you have to call me Q. This is a portion of my channel where we really get civically engaged and involved, and we take some time to dive deep into some educational things about how our government works. Now, everybody is talking about the Electoral College right now because they are slated to meet December 14th, 2020. And if you've been following this election, our current president, Donald Trump, has been doing things that have broken a lot of norms. And so it has left many to wonder, will the Electoral College still uphold the traditions and the values and the customs that we have become accustomed to by voting the will of the people? But before we get into that, and before I give you my commentary on the state of play right now, I want to give you a little history into the Electoral College, where it's come from, its racist history, and where we are today, and really discuss whether we should keep this model of electing a president or whether we should abolish the whole thing and elect our president based on the popular vote. Now, to do this, we have to go all the way back to the Constitutional Convention that happened in Philadelphia. There was all of this dialogue back then about the same question that I just asked. Should we elect a president based on the popular vote or not? And there was some dissension between the North and the South. The South felt as though if we elected a president by the popular vote, then that person that was running for president could really just ignore certain states, particularly southern states that are smaller than larger states, and that person would be able to achieve the presidency without actually visiting or representing the will of the people in smaller states. Keep in mind, when we say people, I'm not talking about people as we know them today. Back then, we're talking about white, male landowners. Those were the people that were allowed to vote. And those were the people that was discussing this framework of the Electoral College versus the popular vote of the people. So this conversation really amongst white men was really them wanting equal representation. People or white men in smaller, rural, less populated places felt as though the popular vote would basically X out their voice. Another fact on the foundation of the Electoral College, it was actually a compromise to slavery. And so you have James Madison compromising with Alexander Hamilton, as if, you know, there could be a real compromise over people and bodies and humans who are owed respect and dignity and rights just like everyone else. But let me not go on a tangent. Let's just stick to the Electoral College facts. So the states would get a certain amount of electors based on the population of that state. Well, slave owners wanted their slaves to be considered in the population. However, they did not want them to be a full person. And so you have the Three-Fifths Compromise coming out of this. And so that was a way for slave owners to still have political power based on the number of bodies they owned. And actually, I am going to go back to my earlier tangent because there you see right there, the way the system was built to pick a president still denied Black enslaved people rights and freedoms. However, slave owners wanted to use their personhood as not only a personal and financial benefit for themselves, but also to increase their political capital. And the other interesting thing about the Electoral College was this was, even then, an indirect form of democracy. At the time, states would appoint electors or people to this position. It would be state representatives, what we now know as electors, right? To go and cast their votes for the president. And this was really because not every person knew who was running for president at the time. This was not how we are in 2020 with social media and TV ads and even presidential campaigns going across the country. This was back at a time when that technology just was not available. And so the people would vote on local representatives, kind of like we have congressmen and senators now because they know those people from their communities. And then those people would go out and cast their ballot for the actual president. One would argue that at the time, those people really did have their individual communities in mind, but keep in mind that community that we're talking about is white men, landowners, slave owners at the time, but they would make that informed decision based on them and their community's needs for the president. And so that was the idea of the fail-safe implemented, that the person running for president, although they may not travel across the country, they couldn't really ignore bigger or smaller states because they had elected representation there to make those decisions for them. And so these people running for president really had a case to make to a smaller group of elected officials who would then go on to cast their ballots for the president. So what is it today? Some things have changed. Some things have stayed the same. Thankfully, Black people are, at least on paper, recognized as a field human. There is space to debate if we're treated as such, and other people groups as well. But we still have a system of indirect democracy. We still have the Electoral College. However, at this time, they're not elected by the people. We still have congressmen and senators and elected officials doing their specific jobs, and then we have electors, and every state does them differently, but essentially the state's parties get to choose who those electors are. So I could be an elector, you could be an elector. It would just be based on if the state party wanted to choose us. And typically the people that get to be electors are people who are either donors to the parties or they've been loyalists in some capacity. So there's politicking and even being an elector casting the vote for president. A majority of the states do have laws that the electors have to follow the will of the people. So if the people in a particular state vote for a particular presidential candidate, then that state law says that those electors have to vote for that candidate when they go and vote at the Electoral College. Now, there are two states that do it a little different. Take Maine, for instance. They do not award Electoral College votes by the state. They do it by congressional district, but that's Maine state law. And so for the most part, the 48 other states outside of Maine and Nebraska, they basically have laws that their electors have to vote the will of the people. Now, the reason that we are even having a conversation around, the Electoral College, I think, is because there is some precedent of some shakeup in the Electoral College. Back in 2016, when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump, the candidate, after he was president-elect and won, when the Electoral College went to go meet, there were a few electors from certain states that Hillary Clinton won that did not want to vote for her. And so there was a case in Washington State and Colorado that actually reached all the way up to the Supreme Court because these people were violating their state's laws. And so the Supreme Court essentially issued out orders saying that the state can punish a faithless elector. Now, a faithless elector is an elector that tries to go and cast a vote outside of how the state law determines that elector should cast its vote. We have to remember that even though it's a federal election, elections are run by the states. And so the state law governs how states operate their elections, which is interesting because if you're currently paying attention to what's happening, the Texas Attorney General is suing 4 other states based on how they held their election in 2020. 17 other states have joined on to this lawsuit, and 106 as of today of me recording this video, 106 House Republicans have joined on to that suit as well. It's interesting to me because every state can legally do this. Specifically from a Republican Party that has stood on the pillar of states' rights, is now attacking other states because of the way that state voted and saying somehow that those states' votes should be thrown out, even though those states followed their state law. So what happens now, right? Because the Electoral College will meet, and by all accounts, President-elect Joseph Biden will get those Electoral College votes. If there becomes a situation where electors choose not to vote for Joe Biden and the state has gone for Joe Biden, per the Supreme Court's ruling, those states can then punish those faithless electors, whether that be fines or jail time. And so people have wondered, will the president, Donald Trump, try to interfere in the Electoral College? Well, one of the controversies that we are recently seeing is that he is attempting to get states who have a Republican legislature. So what is a Republican legislature? Remember, there's state government and federal government. And so Republicans in certain states may have won the state legislature. So they get to decide and pass laws in that state. Well, the controversy is Donald Trump has called certain states that have Republican legislatures and has asked them to appoint their own slate of electors to send them to the Electoral College as well. Now, so far, that has not happened. So far, there has not been any traction on that. But you never know what's going to happen. It's 2020. We don't know if a state is going to send an alternative group of electors to the Electoral College, setting up a constitutional crisis. We hadn't heard that, so there's reason to believe that that would not happen. However, again, as much controversy and as much mud that's being thrown around right now, it is my belief I am 99.9% sure that the Electoral College will vote in the way that it is supposed to based on each elector's state law. And as it stands, Joseph R. Biden has won the presidency. And so after we've learned all this, it leads us to ask the question, should we even have the Electoral College anymore? Some people say we should absolutely abolish the Electoral College, and citing 2016, where Hillary Clinton got 3 million more popular votes than Donald Trump. However, she lost the Electoral College, thereby losing the presidency. And people still have a little bit of PTSD about that. But that is the way we do things here. Side note, one thing that we aren't talking about is Joe Biden has gone on to win an historic amount of votes. He is currently, at the time of this video, leading Donald Trump by 7 million plus votes. Now, the movement to abolish the Electoral College has come up and gone down over the years. However, some states have come together to effectively abolish the Electoral College and not even using a constitutional amendment. There is a thing called the Popular Vote Interstate Compact, where as of today, 15 states have signed on that their states will automatically give whoever wins the popular vote those Electoral College votes. These 15 states have signed on to this compact. Currently, those 15 states together in this compact have 196 electoral votes between them. Now, 270 is the magic number needed to win the presidency in the Electoral College. For this compact to be effective in theory, other states would need to join on to get to that 270 and have their state laws solidified that those Electoral College votes will go to the person who won the popular vote. Thereby, that collective pack would have 270 Electoral College votes. And so then whoever wins the popular vote automatically wins the presidency. Now, I think, there is lots of room and discussion to get rid of the Electoral College because it absolutely makes no sense that someone, whether you supported Hillary Clinton or not, got 3 million more votes out of everyone that voted and still lost the presidency. I understand the history of wanting all the presidents or the presidential candidates to visit all the states and to build coalition and consensus. I totally understand that and totally agree that that should happen. But the way the system is, something seems flawed about it. And so I'm an advocate of getting rid of the Electoral College because it doesn't make sense. No matter who wins, it doesn't make sense for someone to receive that many more votes and going on into the future and potentially still losing the Electoral College vote. Furthermore, even that we have this debate to where states can somehow disregard electors and appoint their own because of the current controversy that's being presented by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is something that we really shouldn't have to deal with going forward. If we're going to be the best of the best and we're number one and we're America and we stand on these pillars of democracy and freedom for all, then we shouldn't even be approaching a situation where we have to wonder, will the system hold? So all in all, I think we definitely need to get rid of it. I definitely think we need to transition into a popular vote, just like we elect every other representative. It is the person that gets the most votes. That is the person that wins. And so we should definitely do that with our commander-in-chief, with the highest office in the land. But that's just what I think. I'd love to know what you think. If you're watching this right now, please put in the comments, what do you think? Should we keep the Electoral College or should we abolish it? Does it matter that it has its racist past, or do you think the forced coalition building of many states is something that should continue to happen, and this is the only way we are able to achieve that? I'd love to know what you think. Remember, dissent, not disrespect, and so we welcome all opinions here as long as it is not steeped in oppression, bigotry, or disrespect. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please, if you're streaming this right now, hit the like button, share this with somebody that needs to hear it so that they can get caught up on the history and that they can have this dialogue on whether we should or should not abolish the Electoral College. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on your post notifications so you never miss a beat. And until next time, friends, this is The Q with me, your host, Quentin R. Giles, but we are friends now after all of this, so you know you have to call me Q.